Hi, this is Zach with Worn & Wound, and today I'll be doing a hands-on with the Dan Henry 1947. These are some watches we talked about before on the website. Dan Henry, just to give you a quick background, is a well-known watch collector who actually has this incredible website called timeline.watch that is literally a timeline. You click on the year and it'll show just hundreds of watches and give you great details on all those watches. It's honestly one of the best resources for kind of digging around just to learn about some esoteric models and vintage watches, etc. And they're all watches also the gentleman Dan Henry has found and collected over the last few decades, I believe. And he did something that I think most kind of high-end collectors don't usually do, and is actually distill that passion he has into an affordable project, which made it very interesting, something we obviously just had to write about. And like I said, we have a pretty thorough breakdown of the 4 watches he initially released, which you can find on the website. So there was 4 watches, each based on a different year, a couple chronographs, even an automatic dual crown dive watch. But of all those watches, this is the one that really kind of stuck to me, so I wanted to take a closer look at it. And this is the 1947 model. It is currently the model based on the oldest watches, and it takes some cues from a few different watches. These are definitely watches that I think in some respects are in the homage category, but they're just such kind of like esoteric watches that they don't have that kind of typical homage feeling, which to me really is, Submariner, Speedmaster, whatever. So this watch, 1947, has a dial that is largely based on the 1947 Omega chronometer watches, and then it has a case that is more pulled actually from a Vacheron Constantin, like Calatrava style watch to create this very attractive package. And there's a couple of reasons why I personally find it so appealing. It's really about the quality that is here at the price point. So this is a $190 watch. It is a quartz watch powered by a Seiko VD78 movement. So nothing fancy in the movement there, but at $190, it's being priced, I think, very much fairly and very much in accordance with other quartz watches, and fairly, I think, aggressively for some of the finishing and detailing you have going on here. So the dial here, which is an absolutely beautiful dial, and like I said, it's very close to that Omega from 1947, down to the hands and everything, has just incredible printing, incredible brushing, texturing, applied numerals. It's really actually a very high-end dial, one that I think really belies the price of this watch, and frankly competes with watches at price points is several, dozens of times the price of this. I don't think there's any way other than to have done this other than to have actually spent a lot on this dial and then tried to balance it out in other ways to get that $190 price point, unless they just really lucked out and found the most incredible manufacturer ever to do this. So you'll see on this dial you have a lot of detailing. But what really kind of makes it sets it off to me is that you have a bunch of different textures that are outlined with black. So you have a brushed silver ring here in which you have an applied indices here. On this model, there's actually 2 versions of it. You have those all in a foreign rose gold color, which is beautiful, really offsets from the steel. Under there, so you have the brushed, and then you have matte around that. And you'll notice everything's outlined in black. So that brushed area is perfectly lined in black. Doesn't go even the slightest bit over the brushing, and the brushing doesn't come out the other side. Everything is perfectly centered. That's really kind of, a good technique. You often, if you get something under a loop, will notice things don't quite line up, even though, you'd have to look at them at that magnification to see it. That just isn't the case here. Things really do line up. The lines are also perfectly sharp and crisp. It's just, like I said, it's very, very high quality. Then you look at these applied markers. And once again, this is something you might not want to do with your inexpensive watches, but if you take a loop and look at the polished markers on your more inexpensive watches, you might notice some scratches, occasionally fingerprints, occasionally a little bit of glue, stuff the naked eye won't see, but under magnification you can. Once again, not the case here. Then you have these smaller dots, which are actually little domes, just an extremely cool detail, beautiful looking, all just perfectly placed. I just think that really just speaks to this watch being kind of a heavy hitter in terms of the value you're getting. Sure, it's a quartz movement, but that's why it's $190. But if this was $1,090 and had a mechanical movement in it, honestly, I wouldn't need to see anything changed with the dial or the case. I think they really just nailed it. And then it's beautiful. There's not a lot of watches out there. This is a really kind of interesting and iconic sort of design, but not one that is regularly, kind of brought out. It definitely has an old-fashioned feel to it, but it's just stunning, I think. And for a watch, with this style, I think it's pretty versatile. One thing I'll say is the watch is a little on the large side. It is 40 millimeters. Vintage watch would have been smaller. I actually have to check. I'm not 100% sure of the original 1947 chronometer's size of that watch, so it feels a little bit like casual rather than dress. I think if this watch was everything kind of made a little bit smaller, brought down to 36 millimeters, it would be like a watch that would be almost impossible to take off my wrist, especially if I had to go to more formal occasions. Furthering that nice finishing, though, actually just quickly on the case, you'll see from the top everything is brushed, but the side of this bezel is actually totally polished. See a little bit better here. So there is some actually nice play and finishing that's going on here. This straight line of polish against the brushed from the case, and very clean brushing all the way around. Once again, just really great finishing. And you have this domed crystal here, which just looks very cool. So yeah, that's the 1947. I think this is a watch that's very worth your attention. I think it's a very fun watch. And if you're in the market for something with a vintage style like this, and you really don't want to spend a lot of money, you're going to get a really authentic feel from this piece. So check out the article on Worn and Wound. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you.